All right, engaging. Give me 1 second. We are live.
Good evening and welcome to the Virtual School Roundtable hosted by the Maryland State Board of Education and the Maryland State Department of Education. My name is Jean Halley. I'm a member of the Maryland State Board of Education, and it's my pleasure to facilitate this roundtable and to welcome the State Board of Education member, Bianca Chang. You want to give us a wave, Bianca? Very good. And I think the superintendent will be joining us shortly, and all of our roundtable participants and our viewers on YouTube Live. And of course, someone is trying to call me in the middle of this. The State Board of Education and MSDE are hosting this roundtable and a series of roundtables and other engagement events to hear all about your experiences and ideas for the future of education in Maryland. We are using this feedback to guide the development of a multi-year strategic plan that will implement the blueprint for Maryland's future and strengthen our public education system. 22 of Maryland's local school systems offer full-time virtual programs in which students may participate. Local school systems provide varying content, instructional leaders, and structure for their virtual program. Over this past school year, the Maryland State Department of Education has been collecting, analyzing, and presenting data about these programs to the State Board of Education during our meetings. This data and information is being used to help inform future decisions regarding virtual education to ensure that these programs provide meaningful, equitable, and high-quality learning opportunities to Maryland students. Tonight, we will hear from students, educators, families, and school and district leaders about their experiences with the virtual program to learn about best practices, opportunities for growth, and innovative ideas to better support virtual school programs. Now we have 2 full screens of participants. So if you raise your hand and I don't see you, maybe on the other screen, and so be patient with me, I'll try and flip back and forth, but also please use the chat because all of those comments will be collected and help to inform our strategic plan. Has the superintendent joined us yet?
I'm here.
Oh, great. Okay. I'm happy to introduce Superintendent Chaudhry, and I know that he's enthusiastic about these roundtables and your participation, and we look forward to your opening comments.
Thank you, Jean. I appreciate it. Thank you for the intro. I also see board member Bianca. If you can wave and say hello, there she is. I'm excited about this one. I really appreciate you guys making the time in the evening to hang out with us for an hour and a half. You don't usually often hear people say, pandemic and silver lining together. And I think there are silver linings. And unfortunately, it took a not so fun worldwide event that obviously has caused a lot of damage, both to student learning as well as other things, but also exposed things and revealed things. And one of those things is that we can do virtual learning really well. And we should embrace that. And so you guys are here today to have that conversation, right? What are the high points of virtual learning? What's working? What do you really see in terms of future innovations around it and what we should consider as a state? Because we know that it has done, for those who it's really working well, it is working well. And so what should we do as a state in regards to that investment, right? We shouldn't necessarily hinder innovation, and where can we continue to invest in smart models to be able to do things. And we know there's a lot of promise in it for those that it works well for. So I really appreciate you guys making the time today. I say this line to everyone when I do these roundtables: speak your truth, right? Very important to say what you really, how you feel, what you think, what you are believe is the right thing to do. One of the things I often say is, as Jean, ask you questions, I may come in and ask a follow-up. And so the board and myself live in the world of policy often, right? Policies create conditions for things to either happen, or policy creates conditions for things to not happen, right? And so as you give your ideas, think about like, what could it be in the form of policy, right? And so it's something we obsess about at the State Department of Education. So I'm looking forward to engaging with you, looking forward to hearing your stories. And with that, Jean, please take it away. Thank you.
Terrific. This is some very exciting topic for us. I think we'll have a great discussion tonight. So let's start off with some introductions. How about from Cecil County? Can you introduce your team members there? It is a blended virtual program, and we'll start with Kyle.
Sure. My name is Kyle Rickendrew. I'm the Director of Technology. With me today is the Managing Director of the Blended Virtual Program, Josh Mangold. I also have a teacher, Steve Warner, and we have Kira with us as well. She's an 8th grade student, a middle schooler in our program. So we're really happy to be here and excited to share what how we've designed our program.
Terrific. Looking forward to hearing from all of you. And next we have Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and this is the Virtual Academy program. And if we could start off with Daniel.
Sure. I am Daniel McKinney. I go by Danny, and I am a science teacher at the Virtual Academy.
And Alyssa.
Hi there. I'm a parent of a high school student, a middle school student, and 2 elementary school students at the Virtual Academy.
Terrific. Augustus?
Yes, I'm Augustus Dickens. I am a school counselor for grades 3 through 8 at the Virtual Academy.
And Lindsay?
Good evening. I'm Lindsay Draker. I'm the proud principal of Anne Arundel County's Virtual Academy.
Very nice. And Elena?
I'm Elena from the Virtual Academy.
Great. And now let's hear from our participants from Washington County Public School Academy of Blended Learning. We'll start with Robert.
I'm Robert Stike. I'm the principal of the Academy of Blended Learning. We're K-12 right now.
And Angel?
I'm a 10th grade student at Able, and my school system is Washington County Public Schools.
Thank you. And Kristen?
I'm Kristen Murphy. I'm a parent of 2 seniors that actually just graduated from the ABLE program in Washington County.
Terrific. And David?
Hi, I'm David Mahaffey. I am a English and history teacher at the Academy of Blended Learning here in Washington County.
Thank you for joining us. And now we have St. Mary's County Public School Virtual Academy, and we'll start with Alex.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Alex Jaffers, and I have the pleasure of having 2 roles for St. Mary's County's Virtual Academy. I'm the Director of Assessment and Accountability for the county, but I also I moonlight as a teacher also at the Virtual Academy in St. Mary's County.
Nice, welcome. Maggie. Maggie, are you with us?
She's getting hit with some storms, so she'll be on here and there. So
okay, we'll go back to Maggie later. How about Connor?
Hello, I'm a 10th grader from St. Mary's County Public Schools, and I am at Virtual Academy.
Thank you for joining us, Connor. And next we have a Comico, the Blended Virtual Learning Program, and we'll start with Dave.
Thanks, I'm Dave. One of my responsibilities is supervising our virtual learning programs here at Comico. I'm joined today by a fantastic team representing our elementary blended virtual program. We have one of our dynamic teachers, Magic, as well as 2 fantastic parents, in Heather and Jason. So we're happy to be here today.
Thank you all for joining us. Terrific. And last we have TALS, or the Trans-Ed Academy for Working Students. And we'll start with Makai. Cool. Take off my, there you go.
Sorry. So good afternoon. I'm Makia Cordell. I'm one of the college and career coaches for the Trans-Ed Academy for Working Students. And we work to provide high school seniors with a flexible schedule around their work schedule to complete their high school requirements and either get a jump start or be supported in post-secondary planning.
Thank you very much. And how about Paulina? I'm not sure if Paulina has been able to join us yet. Well, one of the things I think you can hear from the introductions is we have great geographic representation and we have great different kinds of programs, elementary programs, high school programs. So I think we'll have a rich discussion tonight. But before we get started, I'd like to set a few expectation and housekeeping items. We are live streaming and recording the roundtable on YouTube from 6 to 7:30, and your participation implies consent to be recorded. When you're not speaking, please stay muted and use the chat function if we're running short of time and there are additional comments you would like to add, please add them in chat. As we transition into our questions, we're looking forward to hearing about your honest experiences and creative ideas for how we can better support virtual school programs. We have a lot to discuss and a limited amount of time for all of our participants to share. Each participant chose questions that are most important to them to discuss this evening. So we'll be calling on you for those specific questions to make sure everyone is able to share. Please try to keep your comments to 1 to 2 minutes to allow everyone room to talk. If you're viewing on live stream, you can use the chat to ask questions and make comments throughout the evening. We'll try and address those towards the end of the roundtable, and MSDE will use the feedback to inform our planning as well. We also ask that you avoid mentioning the specific names of schools, teachers, school staff, and students to protect their privacy. So with that, we'll launch into the first question. Virtual school programs have varying admission criteria and processes. For students and families, how did you learn about, apply, and get into your virtual program? And for school and district staff, how did you determine the selection criteria and recruit students for your virtual school program? And let's start off with a comment from Josh.
Hi, good evening. So we drew a lot of lessons from the 1920 and 2021 school years when we were in the pandemic crisis. And we understood that a percentage of our student population performed as well, if not better, through the virtual schooling model. And that included students with pre-existing physical and mental health conditions, other students who had various challenges in the face-to-face environment, whether that was due to bullying, anxiety, or other potential behavior challenges, and some students that simply were better able to focus at home in the comfort of their own surroundings and chose to want to engage in a virtual setting. So as we set out to establish criteria for entrance, we wanted to make sure that all of our students could access the program if they chose, but make sure that it was a right fit, knowing that it isn't necessarily the right fit for all, but it is the right fit for some. So what we did is created a process that included conditional and non-conditional and probationary statuses, meaning that we would look primarily at a student's academic and attendance records. But as I said, some students who may have had some challenges in the face-to-face environment, it may have impacted those records and they may have not looked as great, in which case we would assign a student a conditional status, meaning that they would be entered into our program, and at 15 days we would take a look at how they're performing on some benchmarks in terms of their attendance and assignment completion. And if they were doing well, we'd transition them to probationary status for a marking period so that everybody who wanted access could gain access, but we supported them along the way. And then a non-conditional status student is someone who, when we looked at those criteria of a historic and present attendance and historic and present academic performance, there were no concerns. And so that's how we went about trying to make it inclusive, but also supportive and identify the right fit for our students.
I'm sorry, how long was the conditional period where you then reviewed their record?
The initial conditional entrance, we settled on 15 days. We did trial 10 and 20, and we thought 15 was the most appropriate amount of time to give them time to kind of acclimatize, if you will, to the program. And then that way, if they were struggling, we could get them more support or identify a more appropriate placement if need be.
Thank you. And how about Elena? Elena, I don't see you on my screen, but I think you're here. Let's see. Okay, maybe you're having some technical storm-related difficulties. We'll come back to you. How about Danielle?
I'm going to probably defer to Lindsay if I could. She could probably speak better to the admission policies. So Lindsay, would you mind taking that one?
I sure can. Anne Arundel County, much the same as what we've heard from our Cecil County partners here next door, that we had a selection criteria also based on previous attendance, previous grades, making sure that there was mental health, physical health, or other family circumstances or extenuating circumstances to make virtual learning a need for our students during the application process. And then we, similarly to what we've just heard, also instituted a period where we were monitoring success and ensuring that we did a probationary period for a marking period. For us, it was 9 weeks in Anne Arundel County to check if we could implement the right supports through the student support and success plan and meeting with our support staff that we have here and our teaching staff during our coaching and flex time to help the student make gains. If we saw that based on that 9 weeks and they made the improvement, they could remain. Otherwise, similar to what we've just heard, we had a conversation and worked on a transition and transfer process if they couldn't get to a standard of success, because we wanted them to both academically and social emotionally thrive with our school. Many rose to the challenge with some extra supports, and we saw a lot of success that way with some intensive supports. And I know that on one of the further questions, my school counselor will also speak further about the supports that we put in place to make sure that our children here were successful in a virtual learning format. And I know that our system set that up in place because, much like we heard from Cecil County, we wanted to make sure that it was a right fit for students, because there are a large majority of our students that needed this format and have been quite successful. And we wanted to make sure to provide this appropriate format to them.
Yeah, I think that's a great theme in terms of saying that it has to be the right fit and that there's no one size fits all. So I love the conditional piece, and I love that you're thinking about how the students can succeed and what they need to have to be able to succeed in your programs. Let's hear from a student. Elena, would you like to answer this question?
Yes, sorry, my microphone was a little not working. But the way that my mom found out about the program was I transferred counties because we moved, and she was trying to research options online because she saw that I was doing really good in online school. And I was getting better grades, and it was a really good experience for me. And we found in Anne Arundel County a virtual academy, and it was great because any questions she asked, it was answered right away, and it was just a great experience with the transition of moving to counties and all that.
Terrific. I do think it's a bright opportunity for students, and I'm so glad that your mom was able to find the program. I don't see other hands raised, so I'm going to go on to question number 2. What do students need to be successful in the virtual school programs? And when students are not successful, what does your virtual program do to support the students? So let's start off with Kristen.
Hi. I would say the main key for the virtual learning is having a strong support system at home. I would think, you want to be able to have that communication with the parents and the teachers. And we've had a really good experience with that. I mean, any questions that we had or concerns, they were on top of it. I mean, they sent out weekly progress reports for, to see where your students were. That came through Synergy, which was linked to our emails. And I would say other kinds of characteristics they would need maybe is self-motivation for high school students, wanting to have goals and certain things like that where they have ideas of where they want to go, kind of thing. So now the time management skills, my younger son had a hard time with time management skills during the COVID session era there. But over time, he got so much better with the virtual learning, and he became more independent with that. So I think that actually helped him. I know that sounds crazy for some, because you would think that that's something that you definitely need to have in the beginning, but no, he did really well, and he actually he grew a lot from that. But I would say, and even the teachers, they provide after hours tutoring. So if your students are struggling or they're having a hard time, they'll provide after hours tutoring on certain days. And then depending on their schedule, sometimes even right after class, they can ask questions and they're there for them. So I'd say it's a very supportive environment and almost like a personalized type of environment compared to in the classroom. So
Kristen, if I can ask a follow-up, what is like your number one kind of motivation to keep them in a virtual program? Like, is this something you see happening all throughout their K-12 experience, or is it like, what would you say is your biggest thing? It's my guess is it's like the best fit for them, and so that's what you want, but is there something else that you would share on top of that?
I would definitely say there's less distractions than there normally is in the classroom. They are more focused. And I don't know if it's because it's just them and then their teacher, even though the other students are there, they feel that more one-on-one type of connection. So I think that definitely played a role in it. And they just overall, they did really well with their grades. They went up so well, like skyrocketed, from where they were. So I think that was more encouraging. They got more self-confidence too in that environment. Yeah.
What would you say to someone's, because some people say, well, what about the social interaction? And it's not the same with just, these Brady Bunch squares that we're looking at right now. Like, how do you make up for that? And what would you do? What would your response be to them? Yeah.
Well, they have breakout rooms, they call them. And they do really well in those. Those are just basically small group sessions. And all the students, she'll break them up in smaller groups, and then they will sit and talk about whatever material they just went over in class or the topic. And that's how they communicate with each other. And then they'll also actually share their ideas with one another. So if one student is struggling, it's almost like peer tutoring too, in a way. That's kind of helpful. So I think that's a big plus too. And that also helps with their, their socializing. And then in some of their other classes too, they will encourage them to do different outside activities, like for different gym classes and PE and stuff like that. So.
Got it. Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Maggie. And I think that there's a question from YouTube that if you could wrap that into your comments here, and it jives with what Kristen was just referring to. Nicole asks, were there any restrictions to the program offerings for virtual students, such as sports eligibility, special education services, AP courses, etc.? So if you could answer both, what do students need to be successful, and what do you do if they're not successful? And Nicole's question as well, that would be helpful.
That's Maggie, SMCPS, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we offered an array of courses. We service grades 3 through 12. So we offered everything from AP courses all the way down to our general courses. And any student that wanted to participate in them were allowed to participate in them. We had no restrictions on that. If a student was interested, we got it, whether it was vendor served or whether our students were serviced by live teachers. I had a lot of contracted teachers that were willing and able to work with our students after school hours, and that came on during other times of the day as well. They were former teachers, retired teachers, as well as my onboarded staff. With regard to IEPs, 504s, I service those kids as well. And it was just a matter of making sure that, we worked with IEPs, the accommodations that were needed. I have a special ed teacher as well as one a para, so that the kids were able to, receive anything that they needed, while within the classroom. What was the other parts of the question? So,
what do you think students need to be successful in virtual programs? And if they're not, how do you help them?
They absolutely need a parent support network that is strong, a guardian support network that's strong. If they don't have that from the get-go, we have a hard time, enforcing that organization, that independent learning, getting on meets. We require our kids to be on meets 2 to 3 times a week, depending on what the class is. And if we don't have that, that from the get-go, that's hard to deal with. We have an application process that we work through. We require the kids to have good attendance for our upcoming school year. We had no restrictions when it came to this year. We felt it a little bit when it came to just basically working with those kids, because a lot of kids felt like they could just get online, complete the work, get off. But that wasn't our anticipation at all. We wanted the kids to be able to work with the teachers, be on live with the teachers. And some of our kids definitely did not have that idea. So we also had workarounds with our homeschools. If a student was not successful virtually, then we worked back into the homeschools with them. Sometimes it wasn't possible. They were so deep into the school year that if we did send them back into the homeschool, they would have been failing there as well. Of success coaches that work with the kids and were in contact with them in case they needed extra support in certain contact areas. So, we tried a lot of different services to help those kids out that were, just suffering academically. I also had a counselor that was on board that dealt with the social emotional part of being online. I know the Dr. had talked about, what do you do with the kids that didn't have the opportunity to get out socially? We tried that. We worked with the kids online, creating lunch bunches, Minecraft groups. We did things that the kids could actually come into the school and work with us. We had testing on site so the kids could be here and see each other live, as well as interacting with us. Every opportunity we could get to get the kids here, we tried our best because we knew that that was a really huge piece for us. Just being successful academically, connecting with us, not just through the screens, but, seeing us in person, it really made a difference. So, there's a lot of changes I would make for next year specifically. You can't take everybody. It really is not. You can't do it because not all kids are going to be successful online. That was one of our big takeaways. But I think overall, we serviced our IEPs, 5 befores, all of our kids like that. We knew what to do and what not to do for next year. So
how would you screen since you can't take everyone? I agree with you.
Yeah,
you can't
so
take everyone.
one of our biggest screening processes was dealing with the attendance piece. If a student is not going to be available in school, then how do we make sure they're available online? And a lot of that comes through the communication with the homeschool. Why are they not going to school? Working with our PPWs at the school system, the counselors, finding out, is there possibly an issue with anxiety? Are they not coming to school for that reason? Some of those kids thrive better online than they did in the homeschool. So while I want to say that's a huge piece, it's not as big as I want it to be, but it is a huge takeaway for us this year. The grades are a huge piece as well, but a kid in person is very different from a virtual kiddo. So if they're doing great in person, that doesn't necessarily translate to being successful online. So what we did as part of our application process this year is we did a technology assessment. Can they access Schoology? Can they be organized online? Can they access the platforms that we use? And can they do it effectively? Because some of the time when they get onto Schoology, they can hand in a blank paper. And if they think the teacher's not checking it or handing in a blank assignment online, then they're just getting away with it. So we need to make sure that they are able to access, organize, look at it, and be independent. So those are huge pieces to our application process. We also did teacher recommendations. Is the student able to access, independent virtual learning? Because we still do virtual learning in the homeschools. It may not be as much as we do, but we want to be able to see, does another teacher see what we want?
That's great input. I appreciate it very much. Mm-hmm. How about David from Washington County?
Well, just about everything that has been said is 100% accurate. I do have one other thing that I think that should be is that the students have to learn to be more adaptable in the virtual school than they are at the regular school, because not everything's working. We just saw it here, storms, things that happen that go on. So we have to be adaptable, and so do we as teachers. We have to teach ourselves to be a little bit more patient. This has been a learning process for both the students and the teachers. I'm in my 33rd year of teaching, and this was a big change to go to the virtual process. But I think the students and the teachers both have learned to adapt and to be able to use the military, adapt and overcome. And that's the big thing. Be yourself. When the students come in, they have to be able to communicate. One of the problems we had is that they want to chat all the time. And the idea that they have to be allowed to be themselves and talk, and they have to communicate with us more than just writing something in the chat.
Yeah, it's really coming through loud and clear that you look at each of these students as individuals, and all of the supports that good teachers offer in the classroom are alive and well virtually. So it's lovely to hear. Let's go to Augustus.
Yes, from the Virtual Academy in Anne Arundel County. The first part of that question, I think it's important to realize that when students come into, and this is based on my conversation with students, coming into the virtual setting, if you look at the screen now, we see everyone looking at us. In the classroom, you don't see that. In the classroom, your peripheral you might can catch a handful of kids in your view, but you don't see everyone staring at you. It's very intimidating in that situation to admit when you're wrong or when you don't understand something. So I believe that it's super important that teachers give students opportunities to express their struggles in a discreet way so that they don't feel so intimidated in this setting. So one thing that we do for that first part of the question, the one thing that we do is that we offer Google Forms that students can complete during class to let the teacher know instantly that they're struggling in that subject. It captures it right then and there. The teacher can glance at it and see it in the here and now. And they may not be able to stop the assignment right then and there, but they can discreetly circle back around to do a reteach moment right there with those students. Another thing in that first question block is that I met with a lot of students and I give them an opportunity, as my friend David said, I give them opportunity to socialize, but we talk about their academics. And when they're in a group setting and they can really discuss their struggles, it makes it more normal for them and it makes it more acceptable. Struggle is not a bad thing. For the second part of the question, one thing that we do in Anne Arundel County at the Virtual Academy is that we have something called a success plan. And our success plan, I believe it should be a gold standard, to be completely honest with you. We meet with any student who earns a D or an E in a given marking period. And we meet with them on a weekly basis, sometimes twice a week. But what we're doing is we are tracking their progress. So they're able to see the data themselves. Also, they're able to set the goals, weekly goals or bi-weekly goals or interweekly goals themselves with us. And it gives them more of a mentor feel other than like an instructor feel, because you're not coming down on them. You're just kind of showing them like what they can do. You're being positive the entire way. We don't believe in the word can't and not. It's not yet, or we can't do it yet, but we will get it. So it's a very positive feel that we're giving to those students. So through that success plan, the kids are able to see where they are, and they're able to see their grade rise from where it was to where it can be, or the potential that it can be. And it's kind of like a reward at the end of the tunnel once they see that.
Augustus, you're getting lots of support from your colleagues on chat in terms of the relationships that students are making, the importance of chat in terms of being able to express themselves confidentially. And I think, my experience is also there's no hiding in a virtual class, because it's not that the 3 kids who are always raise their hand get called on. The teacher can see everyone, look for everyone's responses, everyone else can see them as well. But it does have the advantage of being able to have discrete conversations and coach kids that you can't do so gently in a physical situation. Let's go to Magic.
Good evening. So my response would be from a teacher standpoint. My team and I have noticed that successful students typically have an environment that's conducive for learning. So there are limited distractions. It's a familiar space for them so that they can access their learning materials each day, and they're under a routine, and that they're organized and they're able to follow the schedule that's set for them, especially when there is that independent time when they're not live with the teacher. And to the colleagues on the panel here who've mentioned before, being tech literate, being able to maneuver through screens and access multiple tabs and documents is a real big piece, and something that in the beginning of the year, we take some time to make sure they're capable of doing, especially teaching grades 3 through 5 with science and social studies. It's a lot of maneuvering through multiple tabs during some lessons. But I also ensure that I provide supports for the kids and for their families through constant communication through Class Dojo with the families, using events on the class story if there's an upcoming assessment, or if there's like materials they might need for a science lesson. And then also communicating with the kids through Google Classroom in the private comments or on the stream. And I provide like week at a glance that lets them know like, what are we learning this week? A to-do list for each day, so they're understanding what their independent assignments may be, or what their special is for the afternoon, or who their small group teacher will be for the afternoon. And then also just making sure that what's in Google Classroom is posted in a format that is accessible for them, so they understand, where's the answer supposed to go? Is it a bulleted list of instructions, bolding things to make sure they really focus on those key parts of the assignment, providing audio or some kind of video to assist them when they're working independently. What I think is a big piece, when they're not always with you to ask the question, that they have something to rely on to come back to, so that they can feel a sense of independence when they're working on their own. Were some of the things that I wanted to mention for this specific question. And then if there are, if those supports still aren't working, we do try to have team conferences with the family and with the child, maybe contacting the homeschool and speaking with support staff there or the administrators there, so we can put a plan in place to help them improve and be successful.
So many good practices to help students with their executive function. And I do think, in terms of lifelong learning, having these skills to learn online will be important for all of our students. And you're giving them such a good, healthy start with all of that good guidance that you're providing. Thank you. Let's have Jason round out the comments on this question.
Sure, and thank you again for having me on here. I think for me, one of the biggest things is the parent and the teacher support. And, everyone has talked about that before, so I'm not going to, drop too much on that. But I want to say that even though this is a virtual and online environment, it still is a school-based learning environment, and you still have to have those same interactions as you would have with the teachers, as far as, the parent with the child itself. I like the fact that it's not just a strict, virtual learning. There is, as Magic just said, the kids have fun on it. And that's a big thing, to make it fun. They have Fridays where sometimes they have breakfast at their desk, there's music. Those are the kind of things that encourage the kids to continue to learn and want to learn. There's times when my kids are learning and they're doing like self-paced work where it's offline. And I'm like, why isn't the teacher talking? And then, we just have to do this. And they're still so into it that they still treat the work as if the teacher is still there. And I think a lot of that is, it has those fun breaks, it has the serious breaks. And I think to continue to do that, I think the kids will all be better at learning. They'll want to do it more and continue. So I do like the fact that it's just not strictly strict. Then there's that fun aspect of it to keep the kids engaged in it.
That's terrific. So a different kind of engagement than they might have in the classroom. And it's wonderful, I think, as a parent, to witness that your child is really engaged in their learning.
I saw your fellow parent in Comico, Heather, shaking her head as you were responding. So I'm assuming she's like definitely giving you props on those responses.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to move to the third question. Think about the teachers who've provided effective instruction, kind of inspired by Jason's comments here, and the support in the virtual school setting. What teacher characteristics do you think contribute to the student's academic success? And what unique professional development is needed for teachers in a virtual school program? Let's start off with Kyle on this question.
Well, good evening. And a lot of it Magic kind of already discussed a little bit, so, most importantly, good teachers know how to build relationships with students, right? So when you talk about what are those unique characteristics, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's virtual, teachers know how to grab onto the kids. How do you engage them? How do you make connections? How do you develop that trust? And you have you need different tools to be able to do that virtually than you would make necessarily face to face, right? So what are those kind of those engaging kind of things to develop those relationships? Because as Jason talked about, his kids are working even when the teacher isn't there. Why? Because they want to strive and do well for the teacher, right? Even when they're not around. So that is that is to me the number one characteristic. Now, when it talks about unique professional development, I really kind of lump it into two categories. And again, Magic shared some of those techniques that he's already doing, right? So it talks about instructional design and communication, right? How you design your instruction virtually is different. You still can leverage some of those same practices and the same kind of workflow and knowledge flow through it, but how you actually design it and communicate it to kids must be different, because you have to do this in a virtual environment. How are you structuring the course? We use Schoology. How do you structure the course in Schoology? How do you bring that commonality and structure throughout all the classes the kid works through? So we're in a synchronous program, so our kids follow a normal school day and they have their teachers in a synchronous session. So what experiences are they going from their math class or the ELA class or their science class or the social studies class? So they have that commonality, that continuity to help them really kind of get down to business a lot quicker, so to speak. What are that formative and summative assessments look like, right? How are you going to assess them differently? What alternative methods are you going to use to gauge understanding? You can't keep throwing them Google slide presentations, right? You have to, how are you going to design engaging activities to understand that the kids know what they're supposed to be doing? And then again, the ways to communicate families and students, right? So you have this design, how do you make sure that they understand the expectations clearly and they can follow, and then they have a recourse to be able to ask and follow questions, so you have that design and communication strategy, but then you also then bundles into technology, right? So you take all those philosophical instructional design. Now, what does that mean to the technology that you have available in your system, right? Our primary platforms, I call them for delivery, Zoom, right? We use Zoom. Well, someone discussed about breakout rooms. Well, that's a great way for little cooperative learning techniques, bring them back and forth, and you really can kind of leverage that. How do you facilitate, with Schoology, device support? What are the things that Google brings to the table? What other additional resources you have that kind of bake right in that, because you can't just keep giving the same things over and over again. What are those additional resource experiences that kids can engage with? Now, talk about Discovery Ed, VoiceThread, some of our math curriculum, those are just the tip of the iceberg. And then threading in how to make it accessible, right? Because we are serving a variety of children that have a variety of needs. So what kind of tools, first, do you have the right tools? And then secondly, how do you ensure that the staff knows how to use them and then convey that to the students, right? And obviously you got the various different communication aspects. When you talked, I saw a lot of these private messages. Well, we got Schoology allows the messaging back and forth. You have, the Zoom chat messaging back and forth. You have parents having ability to actually use Schoology as this, I want to see what my kids are doing, but then also being able to send messages back to the parents. So I think really the two buckets are instructional design, communication, getting that understanding of what that looks like, and then really how do the tools fit that design? How do the tools fit that communication? So that way we really can maximize the potential of the students in our programs.
I think those are great comments for a policy discussion, because we have a variety of programs across the state, and it does require a different way of thinking about the instructional design. And you all have had this real experience in the field that helps to say what you try and what really works. And you have quite a variety of students. So what works for one student may not work for all students.
And one final comment. Now, you know, we really threaded in our curriculum coordinators to really help in this process, right? You know, so the teachers don't stand on their own, so to speak. We really try to leverage our curriculum leaders in the district to help forge ahead in that. And, you know, whatever we're learning in the blended virtual program, or as far as instructional design goes, we then also apply that in our face-to-face settings as well. So we're really kind of taking our lessons learned in our virtual program and apply them, also take those best pieces back to our traditional face-to-face program.
Terrific. I do see in the chat that David wants to hear from a student, so I'm going to go to Kiara. And if I'm not saying your name right, could you correct me, please?
It's Kira. So
Kira.
yeah.
I think a good teacher characteristic is like being open, like, but still having that form of authority over you, like, you know, to respect them. And I think doing stuff like checking on the students when they're doing their work helps a lot, and it keeps you focused, knowing like that you're in school and you should be doing your work.
And did you enjoy your online teachers this year?
Yeah.
What's your favorite moment in the week of online learning?
Well,
it could be something most recently. It doesn't have to be favorite of all time. Something you enjoyed most recently, if you want to share that.
I like when like we get into class and the teachers are playing like music.
Got it. Thank you, Kira. I really appreciate you sharing that. And tell your parents you guys have an awesome gallery wall in the back. Awesome.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you so much, Kara. Appreciate your comments. Let's go to Dave from Comico.
I don't have nearly as nice of a gallery wall behind me, so I
Yeah,
have
yours is
covered
pretty
up.
basic by comparison.
That's right. You know, our virtual teachers, I guess every day they face American Education Week, you know, but instead of having parents come into their school or to their classrooms as guests, our teachers are guests in the homes and the living rooms and maybe the cars or the campsite, you know, wherever the student is at that particular time. Our educators actually the guest in that moment. So, you know, our teachers need to recognize that. They need to recognize from a communication standpoint what that looks like, from a sensitivity standpoint. You know, you're getting a window into that child's home, into that child's life in a way that you're probably not getting from a student that's in person in front of you. And you have to be prepared to respond, you know, accordingly and professionally in that way. You have to be able to multitask, you know, as you're teaching that lesson to students. You're teaching the lesson to students, and remind you you're in that American Education Week setting, and you've also got the parent that's messaging you on Class Dojo saying, I don't think Johnny understands. Can you repeat it for him? Now, Johnny's sitting there and hasn't really shared that yet, but you have the parent that's
right. Uh-oh, I think Dave's
froze.
Dave's video froze.
One of the challenges of virtual learning. Sometimes,
especially when you're doing it during a thunderstorm. We might have to come back to Dave for the end of his comments. But I'm seeing,
but his complete frozen pose is at a happy place, so I love it.
It works. There, I'm seeing lots of interest in hearing this question answered from a student's perspective. So let's hear what Angel has to say.
I think a great way for students and teachers to connect is having like check-ins. I've seen some teachers put in check-ins, daily check-ins, to see how the students are feeling, maybe about the material or how they're feeling in general. And having teachers really understand, like if you're feeling ill for a day and you just want to relax but still attend class, it's nice having your teachers understand and maybe being more relaxed on the work, but still giving you work and giving you that time to get your work completed. And it's nice to have that relationship with them, because it's very it's nice to know that they care and that you can give that same respect back to them while still building a relationship as a whole and still getting your work completely done.
Yeah, I think people mistaken that aren't involved in virtual education have this idea that there's not as much relationship. And I hear your comments and it's clear that there's a big relationship still virtually between the student and the teacher. Did you have a favorite teacher?
I don't really have a favorite teacher, but I think all my teachers from virtual learning are definitely a lot more my favorite than I have been in actual physical school. It's just been a great way to connect with them rather than being in school where I felt more intimidated by peers and stuff. But online has been a lot more enjoyable for me.
Terrific. Let's hear it from a parent's point of view. Alyssa, how would you answer this question?
Oh, we were so impressed with the quality of the teachers at Virtual Academy in Anne Arundel County. I mean, when Principal Drager told us she was getting the best of the best, I mean, she really meant it. We have PhDs, college professors, like doctors and Dr. McKinney, who's on tonight. It's very impressive to have a PhD as a doctor teaching my high school student biology. That's normally what you see in college on a college level. So it's really impressive to see the quality of teachers. And as everybody has said, the relationships, they really care. They really reach out and make an effort to get to know the students, to figure out their style of learning or just interacting online. Like I have one who's super shy. And so he'll hide he won't show his face on camera. And then I have one that's super, outgoing and will sit there and talk for hours, to the students. So they really adapt to the child and meet their needs, and they really care. They really care about the students. We're very, very impressed.
Any special points you'd have on what professional development we should think about for teachers that are teaching in a virtual school?
No, just the teachers we've had, I haven't seen any deficiencies. They seem to be have really transitioned from the in-person classroom to the virtual classroom effortlessly. Now, I don't know what goes on behind the scenes in terms of training, but we don't see any deficiency. I personally haven't.
Terrific. Sounds like you had a great year. So because there's so much demand for the students' perspective, we're going to close this question with Connor's comments.
Hello, is this working? Correct. Well, kind of what Kyle said is you can't just keep on doing Google Slides all the time. It takes the interaction out of the classroom. You're gonna put the guy to sleep over here. Early morning classes and all. And well, it's like I don't know how to say it. It's complicated to put in words what I'm thinking. You know what I mean?
You still want it to be engaging. You don't want them to just stand and lecture?
Yeah, like a Google Meet.
Uh-huh.
Like Kahoots. I have a teacher that would do Kahoots sometimes, and it's always so fun to do Kahoots with your classmates and all. And it's fun to try and beat them and all, get first place, and have other, games, activities, something that's interactive but fun for the student to stay engaging, but interacting with the teacher and everyone, and just
Yeah, you're getting a lot of comments that support that other people like Kahoots too. So that's great. Great information here.
Can you share what Kahoot is right quick for all the people who may not be as cool as you who don't know what Kahoot is? So what is Kahoot for our audience?
Kahoot is basically you take quizzes or questions and answers, and you have multiple choice, and you have to every question you get correct, you get points, and you're on a leaderboard trying to beat your friend and all, and trying to it's like a competition, but it's friendly competition, but it's all fun.
Got it. Sounds good. I might start cahooting with the state board members. That sounds like a good
Okay, I think we'd like that. That would be a good change from our PowerPoint slides too. And Connor was so good. We're going to ask one more student voice here. Paulina, could you give us your comments on this question, please?
Hello, I'm really happy to be here. Are you talking about question 3, how teachers can be provide effective instruction? So currently I just graduated from Montgomery College this spring, and I was one of the first students to do virtual school in the spring of 2020, because in March we transitioned to virtual school. And honestly, my experience was not that great, I think. But it's also understandable because at the time, everyone was still figuring out, what COVID-19 was. So it was a really, difficult time. But I do remember having a professor, because I was also a dual enrollment student who was taking Montgomery College courses my senior year. So I remember I had a professor, Dr. Hernandez, who just, I don't know how, but she figured out how to use Zoom and how to make a very engaging classroom so quickly. I felt like I was actually in class, and I remember she would kind of force us to keep our cameras on. She said if we couldn't, we would have to explain why. She was very understanding though, and she would always put us in breakout rooms. I think she would always have a timer too. So she would, for a certain assignment, we would have 5 minutes to work on it. And she's like, okay, you got 30 seconds. And then we'd have to hurry up. And I remember a big part of this experience was being able to see everyone else's faces. So it was kind of nice because we could also use the chat, the features where you use your reactions. So I think that also made everyone feel engaged. And honestly, that was my favorite professor for Zoom. And even though she didn't have much time to teach, to learn about Zoom, she just tried her best. And I feel like now I'm also going to be a future teacher, so I can tell that she put in a lot of time behind the scenes.
Right.
So I believe one of the I'm looking at the question. So
from professional development, they should know all the tricks and trades.
Yeah, definitely taking
they're using. Right?
Yeah. When teachers take their time to learn how to use Zoom properly, or doing their own research, how can I make Zoom more engaging? All of that was really great. But I also do remember having teachers who would just not really, I don't know, I feel like they kind of gave up, and they would just end class early. And then it felt like I didn't really learn anything.
Mm.
So
you had a really broad experience, and so nice that you come out of it saying what you appreciated about the teacher that put the extra effort in.
Oh
Thank
yeah,
you for that.
definitely.
Kind of do you want to be?
Sorry, what'd you say?
What kind of teacher do you want to be? I'm
So
looking to hire a bunch of teachers.
I would like to teach third grade. I recently received my Associates of Arts in Elementary Special Education, and I will be getting my bachelor's from UMD in Elementary Special Education. And another thing I wanted to add is that, because the second part of the question, I think, was I think I saw another question that was how do you help students with special needs or anything like that. I remember I talked with a friend or a classmate who needed extra time. I had a lot of classmates who needed extra time. And I remember they would just the teacher would make announcements. She would be oh, if anyone needs, if you are a student that needs extra time, just talk to me after class. She would always, it was just very, she always made it known that we could come to her for help. And if anyone does need extra time, or she made herself available for everyone. Because I think sometimes there are teachers who kind of can be a little bit it can be hard to talk to them because you're scared that they're going to get mad at you, or you're scared that you're going to look, dumb in front of everybody. And I think I heard someone earlier say that they like it when they can feel like they're in a very kind environment where they can openly say anything. So I think that's also very important. And something else I also appreciated was when my professors would say, we all make mistakes. Today I had this issue. So just showing that you're human too. I really appreciated that.
Alina,
we're looking forward to you becoming a teacher.
It sounds like you're going to be an amazing teacher. So when you start applying and stuff, let me know if you need a letter of recommendation.
Thank you.
And Elena, you also have indicated you would like to add to this question. Love to hear your comments.
I did. So the question is, what teacher characteristics do you think contribute to students' academic success? Sorry. For me personally, like the beginning of when we were transitioning to virtual school, we had like a little transition period where the teachers were getting trained, transitioning their work to online. And when we came back, it was mostly independent work. The teachers didn't really talk. And when the teachers didn't feel like being on camera, they weren't on camera. So this year, it was a totally different experience because the teachers were so prepared. They had Google Slides, they had Jamboards, they had Nearpods, and it was very like they wanted our opinion. If it was we were talking about this and they saw that you were like struggling, like because mostly in every class that I have, all the cameras are on. If they could see your face struggling, they would be like, let me just try to explain this differently, but not call out a student like that they're struggling, or if they need a little bit of more help to go out in a separate room, because we don't use Zoom, but we use Google Meetings. And I think also for student academic success, it was really good in the beginning of the year that they were going through all these different types of apps and how to use this and how to log into this. And I haven't used Zoom, but as soon as I came in, I was looking at the different things and I understood what to do because of the training that they gave us. Oops,
Yeah, what you're saying is resonating with your fellow students. They had the same experience.
You can always count on students to give you the nitty and gritty truth and so I just love their responses and seeing the growth in our teachers as well from this massive shift and seeing how they adapted. So I appreciate you guys also going through that with them and seeing how great it can be coming out of it. So thank you.
Yeah, Marianne, I think you make a great comment. She said this time teachers chose to be a virtual teacher, and in the first iteration, everyone kind of got thrown into it. So that's a good point. We're going to move to question number 4. If you have more comments on that question, though, I'd encourage you to add them to the chat. So virtual school programs can utilize synchronous instruction where students learn together and at the same time, or asynchronous instruction where students learn individually at different times. What's working well and what needs to be better with each of these approaches? And are there specific subjects or contents that work better either synchronously or asynchronously? And let's start off with comments from Robert from Washington County.
Okay, thank you. I'm a large advocate of synchronous instruction. Our program here at Washington County is almost primarily synchronous, and I feel that nothing replaces the education that you receive from a live, dedicated, highly qualified district teacher. And our students have thrived because of the amount of screen time, because of the amount of time they have interacting. And that's not to say we don't have asynchronous time. Our teachers use asynchronous work a lot for enrichment. They use it for scaffolding. They even use it for sub-plans. I know there are other counties that are very successful with using more of an asynchronous program, but for us, the students at Washington County thrive to have that interaction with the teacher. This kind of goes back to some earlier comments, but we've had some amazing stories of where students have built relationships with each other. They ask the teacher, can I stay after? And the teacher says, sure, stay after class. And then they say, I just want to get his phone number so we can chat afterwards. And the students have built these relationships because of the time that they're spending together. And we've really created a community of learners. We've had them here for field trips. We've had them here for state testing and some other things that really have worked on that social emotional learning. But again, I personally feel that nothing replaces the face-to-face teacher time. So I'm a strong advocate of that. So
is the entire day synchronous then, or are there times when they go off and on?
It depends. Our elementary school, so our high school is fully synchronous, as is our middle school, and we have some asynchronous work that happens after class, but they see each teacher each day, I should say.
Right.
The elementary has they have some screen breaks, they have recess time built in, but they also have their encore classes and their specials. So they will go to PE class, and then they'll have a screen break time where they'll have time where they're reading, and we have our bookmobile comes once a month here to the building that we're at, and the students come and check out an actual physical book. So there's times that we're encouraging reading and away from the screen, because we know that's important as well.
Yeah, that's very good to hear, because we do hear a lot of comments about people being concerned about screen time for very young learners. So it looks like you've considered that in your program design.
Yes.
Terrific. How about Alex? How would you comment on this question?
Hey, thank you. Good evening. I'll keep it very brief. I like it, like some people like to eat hamburger and French fries together. Some people like to eat their French fries first and then their hamburger. And I really think the virtual learning, what that does is allow the students and the teacher to sort of have voice and choice in how they want to eat, or in this case, learn. Sometimes what I found is giving the students a lot of flexibility in how they're assimilating the material. It goes a lot further. And you heard all the comments tonight from some of the students. They really, that flexibility and that maturity resonated with them, as far as just the teacher saying, hey, I trust you to know yourself better than I know you. So if you have this assignment, you go off and you take care of it, and you handle it the way you want to. Just like when you don't like anybody telling you how to eat your French fries and hamburgers. It's the same thing with learning. So again, it's that sort of voice and choice that I think virtual learning brings to the table that I think makes the most sense. Some people like to learn asynchronous, some people like to learn synchronous, and a combination sometimes works the best. So all these, variations of learning really work to help maximize and optimize students and their potential in the classroom. So thank you.
Thank you. And knowing your students and being flexible, I think, is always one of the skill sets of our great teachers, right? Heather is here, even though she's getting bombarded with the storm. Thank you so much for finding your way back to us. And
I got a little soaked going outside, catching my umbrella and things from blowing away. I'm back. Why virtual school, right? So I was a homeschool parent, not by choice. When my daughter entered kindergarten, I homeschooled her for 3 years. And until they sent me an email about getting her into the virtual school, I would just like to say it is the best thing for my family. I love having her here and being able to spend time with her, and the teachers are amazing. And I really feel like they care, and the classes are fun, like everyone said already. I'm also a little nervous too. I just I feel thankful that you guys are doing the virtual school. My daughter is getting straight A's. She wants to go to school. It has helped her with everything. Her independence, chores, the way that she's maturing, and she's only in 3rd grade, but these things before it was a struggle because I was her teacher and her parent. But I also think, most importantly, that she's home and safe, and I'm able to, watch her and make sure she's doing well in school with the dojo and everything that everyone already said. So
go ahead. I was going to ask about a synchronous question to her since it's elementary school. But Jean, why don't you go first with your question?
I was just going to ask you had been doing homeschooling, and now being part of the virtual school, you know that your daughter's getting all the content that she should get appropriate. And how do you feel about that piece?
That was the best part of all of it, because when you're I didn't want to be a homeschool parent, so I wasn't exactly sure I was getting all the material for her. So I was looking for curriculums at the time, and I mean, she was passing all the things and meeting the requirements for the state test every May, I guess. Mm-hmm. But now I know for sure, she's at the right level and she's succeeding with it, which is something that I feel proud to see her doing that.
Yeah, good peace of mind to know how she's doing versus her peer group and expectations. I think that's a terrific benefit. Right. Superintendent.
Just really one quick thought. So one of the things people say for the younger students is important they get that more live, synchronous, just how you see me right now time versus give them more independent, self-paced work. What's your opinion on that balance? Do you see, are they experiencing the live teacher more, or is there breaks? Like, how does that work for you, and what do you like out of that?
So right now they do synchronous 5 days a week, and sometimes in the afternoon, like after 12, like after lunch, they will have the specials like PE or art or something. Sometimes it's asynchronous, which, you know, I do find sometimes my daughter is like wandering, like, I mean, most of the time she's really independently working, but sometimes if I'm not like, what are you doing? She's like, wait, oh, I'm doing it. I got it, you know, but I think right now, I mean, it's a great amount of time with them. I mean, it's like an hour and a half or for the first couple subjects, science and social studies, and then I'm not sure how long they are, but it makes it till noon. I mean, I like it the way it is right now.
Yeah, no, and daydreaming also happens in person. Trust me, I know.
Right.
I was a professional daydreamer during my student days, so I'm definitely aware of it.
How did I not find that shocking? I don't know. Let's close this question with Stephen from Cecil County, please.
Sure. At Cecil County Public Schools, we run our virtual program predominantly synchronous. So all of our students follow a schedule from middle school, high school, and elementary, and they meet with during a class period with their teachers, and all of the instruction is delivered synchronously. We do use asynchronous lessons in the absence of the teacher. And that could be from completing an activity to watching a video to doing different modalities of learning in the absence of the teacher. There are opportunities for asynchronous that are built within synchronous, but the teacher is there and available to answer questions. And I think that is a really important piece of having that live person there with you. While you may be doing work independently, you have that outlet available to you that is instantly available through the chat, through the microphone. You have the option to be able to move into a breakout room and provide, not redirection, but provide remedial instruction to clarify what they need to be working on, or if there's anything that they're stuck on. You have that instant feedback, to where asynchronously, the student's usually emailing the teacher, and there's a delay from the time that the student has a question on that assignment until the teacher is able to respond. So that piece with it being students working synchronously, I think is really powerful and really beneficial. We do have some students that are working asynchronously, but that's a very small population, and they are doing asynchronous work through a vendor. And most of those cases are a very small collection of students that the interest or the need for the course that they needed was a small number of kids that needed that course. So the best option was to use a vendor for those students. One thing that I think is really a big difference maker in a synchronous class is we can't lose focus that just because we're virtual, those relationships that everybody has already been talking about, that's the number one thing. Before you can start teaching the kids and having them engaging in learning and participating, they have to feel welcome, they have to feel safe. And just by beginning class with random questions about their favorite breakfast or something that they did over the weekend, just to build that content or that connection with kids so that they trust you, they trust the environment. Plus it gives them an opportunity to answer a question that's pretty low risk too. And more kids will be willing to answer those types of questions. The other piece that I would want to make sure I would be remiss not to say is, with our blended virtual program, we are providing an education to some kids that were struggling. They were struggling in a face-to-face environment because that placement was not appropriate for them, from different health conditions, mental health concerns, not feeling safe because of bullying, the list can go on for all of the different reasons why the brick and mortar school wasn't working for them. We have a lot of kids in our program that with disabilities. Some of them are being very successful. You have a kid that has the same disability, but they may struggle with attention. One kid is being successful and another kid's not. So, it's like we already talked about, the one shoe doesn't always fit. And the virtual program can remove distractors from some kids, but it also creates distractors from other kids. So
it's a terrific point. I think it's that's why screening is so hard, because there is not one size that you say this is the kid it's perfect for. And even two kids that have the same nature or issues, it may work for one and not the other. So I think setting expectations and screening, and as you pointed out, having a great relationship with the teachers so that they can always be the advocate for the student. Right. So important. Thank you. I'm going to move to question 5, and we're getting short on time. So I'm going to ask you to try and be a little bit more brief with your answers. How can virtual school programs meet the unique needs of students who receive specialized instruction, including students receiving special education and English learner education services? What's worked well and what needs to be improved? And let's start off with Makai. I'm not saying it right again, I think. Makia, correct me.
Okay, sorry about that. So the question is, what works well with students?
Specialized instruction. What's working well and what needs to be improved?
So our special education students, our English language learners, do you think virtual learning can be designed to really help them thrive? And Steve hit on some of that, but I would be curious in your model, is that something you guys have also taken into account?
So it's the short answer is yes. It is something that we have taken into account, but it's also something that we have struggled with. One of the things that we do well is really having a interactive participation with students, a cohesive interaction with students, meaning I work with, as a college and career coach, I also work with the students' high school counselor or their dual enrollment program associate and their teachers, as well as parents. So one of the bigger things that we've had and we're looking into was having a large number of students that were not very comfortable in English, but they, as their second language, but they're very comfortable as first language. So working to have their work transcribed as far as the materials that they're reading, to ensure that level of comfortability. And then also having tutoring. For example, I'm thinking of a particular student who had a lot of challenges with, their work schedule and then their school schedule that they're trying to balance, and then end up, working independently in a virtual environment outside of that. And so similar to other programs, we support students by creating a performance improvement plan. And then we involve all the parts, the pieces of that cohesive unit. But the other thing we've been able to do is really have mandated like tutoring sessions with students, and especially with students that, that have a higher proficiency in another language, and placing them with near peer tutors and mentors that can not just provide instruction and support in that language, but also provide encouragement in that, encouragement and guidance in their native language as well. So I think that's something that we do really well. And so the student that I'm thinking about in particular was, working on really being the 5th year of her senior year, going into her GED, and decided to say, I'm going to give this one last push to try this. And she did. And we were able to support her through the process and the challenges and obstacles that she faced in doing so.
That's so good to hear that it was more successful and that she was able to make it through. So thank you for sharing that story. I think people want to hear this perspective from a student again. So Connor, could you comment on this question, please?
Yes. So I am also a student that has unique needs. I have dyslexia, so I am it's hard for me to read some words. I have a hard time reading it all. And one of the things that the technology has given me is Google Read and Write. Google Read and Write provides me with tools and resources that help me read words, read paragraphs, phrases that can, some students take them like a couple minutes. Me, I could take 5 minutes, be along with the class instead of, 5 minutes behind or something like that. But yeah, it's like really helped me and all. Another good reading platform is like if I have a project coming up and you have to read this so-and-so book, Learning Ally is a good one. It's not free, it's a little bit of paid subscription, but it does really help get along with those books and like get ahead of the class and all to complete projects and all. So
I'm just curious, as you've used these technical tools, do you feel that you've been able to engage in the content and have it be more satisfying?
Yeah, it's also a lot easier because I do have a difficult time reading and all, like, a chapter book or something, but I can stay ahead of the class and understand the material before we meet for the next day or something. So, yeah.
It's terrific way to solve that problem. Let's hear from a parent's perspective. Kristen, what would you have to say here?
I think they're all great points. The only thing that I would add is I know it would take some extra time to do, but also pre-recorded lectures might help where especially if they need to just re-listen to everything and kind of comprehend the information, or if they have any kind of auditory processing issues or anything like that, pre-recorded lectures can be very beneficial for that. And then even if they're struggling a little bit, they can go back and re-watch it. So that might help.
I do think it makes people feel more comfortable that they can find ways to participate and feel like they're getting the material. So I think that's a great suggestion. Let's close this question with comments from,
Mary Ann really wants to say something.
Okay.
Yes, as I wear two hats. I work in the virtual academy as an employee, and my son Connor is enrolled in the academy. I can say from firsthand experience, he's having a better supported time in this environment than he would have in the building, because the special education staff have more time to do the help that he needs beyond his instructional day. So if he is struggling with government's been a challenge this year, he can meet with his case manager to get the support that he needs beyond what the core instruction, beyond the history teacher. That's been huge. I know he wouldn't get that if he was in the building. So that's been a game changer for us.
I love these comments. I love that it's so reinforcing about that virtual is such an important part of our list of offerings so that we make sure that all students succeed. That's terrific. I'm going to close this one with Stephen. And Stephen, I'm running low on time, so if you could keep your comments brief, that would be great so that we have time for question 6.
Absolutely. I would echo a lot of what was already said. I think a virtual with students with disabilities and EL learners, there's some unique opportunities with some discretion. Providing modified assignments, I can do that. Nobody can see the assignment is different because it's assigned virtually. I have opportunities to where I can create breakout groups, and I can move into a breakout group with a student and nobody knows what we're working on or what we're doing or who's in that breakout group. Special educators can co-teach, and you can use a lot of the different co-teaching models through breakout groups with in co-teaching, and just having 2 different people providing some instruction, being available to kids. So I think, there are some things that are lost virtually, kids that need to be able to have handheld manipulatives. Those are very logistically challenging to get those into the hands of kids that are virtual. Right. But, there are still a lot of very powerful tools that can be done virtually.
household items, right? Thank you. Okay, so we're going to do the speed round on question 6. You're each going to have about 30 seconds if you work with me on this. So why did your school system decide to provide a virtual school programming, and describe the program structure and why it's structured that way? And let's start off with Dave.
So the storm hit Salisbury. I'm glad to be back with you all. And I hope it froze on a nice face, because when the lightning struck in the parking lot, I think I had a completely different face, and I'm hoping the camera didn't catch that. It was a smile. All right, very good. Then quickly into the question then. We have to meet students where they're at. And, the blueprint for Maryland tells us that we're preparing students for post-secondary education experiences or careers and so on. And we know that those post-secondary experiences and those careers are going to utilize so many of these skills that our students are learning through virtual learning. So as we meet them where they're at, we're meeting those students who might need to access instruction in a different way, who may have a life event that has dictated a need for flexibility, may have a health event such as anxiety that is demanding an alternative course for educating them. So it's nice to have that pathway. And I guess, in short, with the right selection criterion process, the right coaching and mentoring of students as they work through the program, they can be successful.
Thank you. How about Robert from Washington County?
We like to say that we're not a COVID program. We are a rigorous comprehensive education program that started, we got the extra funding and stuff to get this started, but it's been talked about for years. My personal opinion is we're 20 years behind higher education, and some students do learn better in this model, but we have to do it correctly. So that's my 30-second brief.
Thank you. Makia from Montgomery County. Makia, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still with us. I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, can you come back to me? I'm sorry.
Sure, no problem at all. Let's go to Alex.
Yeah, just I'm convinced that if we don't have a virtual option for some kids, they're not going to be either come back to the brick and mortar site, or they just won't go to school or be as successful as they can be in this virtual platform. So we're hoping that, one student that I have in particular has a very severe case of autism, and he's thrived in my upper level mathematics course. So I'm hoping that we can continue this in some capacity moving forward. Thank you.
Amazing comments from everyone. How about Alex? Oh, I'm sorry, Kyle?
Oh, I'll wrap it up really quickly. I think we knew right away that we wanted to do it. And just like others have said, is that, maybe COVID was the excuse, sort of to kind of really take that leap. The reality is our families that have really been interested in this program, COVID really has nothing to do with it, right? So in the long term, they really wanted this flexible option. And so we knew, we took the lessons learned from COVID with knowing that we needed synchronous, we needed those kinds of structure in there and provide as maximum opportunities. I will say there was a lot of building in flight, and a lot of lessons learned as we went. And so we've been real excited to be able to provide this opportunity. And I know that we're continuing to build it even better for next year. So we knew it's the right thing to do, to provide options for our kids and options for our families, because life is changing, right? We need to change with it.
It's exciting to be an innovator. So let's round this off with David. You want to offer our last comment on this question?
Yeah, I have to say that being part of the virtual school here in Washington County has been the greatest teaching endeavor that I have done in 33 years. And to see the success that these kids have had, some of them who have never had any success before, have really blossomed in this program. And to hear the stories that some of these students are talking about, that's why we became teachers. And that's why this is just another way for students to be successful.
Very exciting, terrific, and closing comments. I'd like to thank all our.
Sorry, this is Makia. I wanted to come back before you close it out.
Sure.
I just wanted to say we initially started out to give students, more opportunities. And what wound up happening is we found other spaces that we didn't necessarily anticipate. where students could thrive. And so it became a more expanded view than what was initially,
What you
thought of.
anticipated.
Yeah,
right.
and so I was just trying to figure out the best way to put it into words. But now it's just like, let's meet students where they are. Students learn differently. Let's normalize that. Let's respect that, and then let's support that in any way that we can.
Yeah, I do think that we've had a lot of those kinds of learnings. What we thought was going to happen, who we thought was going to show up, what we thought would be successful. It's not always that way, but it's been an exciting journey for everyone that's engaged, I think. So to our participants and those of you who are viewing on YouTube Live, the State Board members, MSDE, thank you for joining us tonight for this roundtable discussion about virtual school programs. Your feedback will guide the development of our strategic plan. We need as many of you as possible to give input. So please complete and share the strategic planning survey at marylandpublicschools.org/survey. We'll also post a link to that in the roundtable and YouTube chats. It's really important. We're really listening. We need everyone's voice and participation. Thank you, Board Member Bianca Chang and Superintendent Chowdhury and roundtable participants and all the YouTube Live viewers. And we did pretty good. We're 1 minute over. Thank you all so much.